The envelope sat in the mailbox like a wound. Heavy cream-colored, embossed with the kind of gold lettering that reeked of arrogance. Clara almost didn't take it out. She'd learned to ignore anything with Adrian's name attached to it. Bills, legal updates, smug notices from his attorney, but this one felt different. She stood in the hallway of her modest apartment, keys still in hand, and stared at it as if the paper itself carried poison. Her pulse kicked. "Mom." Her daughter's voice echoed from the living room. "Is it another letter from him?" Clara forced a smile she didn't feel. "Just something unimportant." But the lie scraped her throat raw. She slipped the envelope into her bag and went straight to her bedroom, closing the door behind her. She sat on the edge of her bed, fingers trembling as they slid beneath the flap. Inside was thick cardstock, perfumed faintly with cedar and money. An invitation, the annual Adrian Hale Gala, an evening of elegance and prestige beneath the title. In elegant script, "You are cordially invited," and then, as if the words were carved with a sneer, "Clara Hale." Her stomach twisted. He had invited her. After everything. After dragging her name through the mud. After abandoning her in the delivery room. After parading his mistress around town like a prize. He had the audacity to send this. No, to mock her with it. Clara almost tore it in half. But then she saw the handwritten note scrawled at the bottom. Unmistakably his. "You always did enjoy playing dress-up. Let's see if you can still manage it." Her vision blurred. The humiliation returned in a rush. The whispers of neighbors. The tabloids that called her the discarded wife. The courtroom where Adrian smiled as his lawyers stripped her of dignity. "God," she whispered. "He wants me to be the joke." Hours later, she sat in the kitchen with her sister Monica, who stirred a chipped mug of tea with unnecessary force. "You're not seriously thinking of going?" Monica's voice was sharp, protective. "This is a setup, Clara. He wants to watch you squirm." Clara traced the edge of the card. "That's what he expects. That I'll cry or rip it up or stay home while he laughs about me with his friends. And you won't?" Her lips curved, faint but steady. "Maybe not." Monica slammed the spoon down. "Clara, listen to me. The man destroyed you. He left you to raise 2 kids alone while he built his empire. He doesn't deserve 1 second of your time, let alone a response to this. I know what he deserves." Clara's voice carried steel now, a tone she hadn't heard in herself for years. "And maybe showing up is the only way to remind him I'm not the ghost he left behind." That night, sleep refused her. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the day he walked out. The sound of his shoes on the marble floor, the cologne that lingered after the door slammed. She remembered pleading, swollen with pregnancy, her voice cracking as he packed a bag without looking at her. And she remembered the silence after, the silence of nights spent feeding an infant while bills piled up, of sitting in court while his attorneys laughed, of friends disappearing one by one. He had taken everything. Her pride, her security, her name. But as dawn crept through the blinds, Clara pressed the invitation flat on her nightstand. For the first time in years, the pain didn't feel like an anchor. It felt like kindling. 2 days later, she found herself standing outside a boutique she had never dared to enter. The mannequins in the window wore gowns that whispered power. Inside, crystal chandeliers bathed silk and satin in golden light. A saleswoman approached, eyes sweeping over Clara's simple jeans and sweater. "Can I help you?" Clara's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "I need a dress. Something. Unforgettable." The woman's brows rose. "For what occasion?" Clara met her gaze. "For a night where I refuse to be forgotten." Back home, she hung the dress in her closet without even trying it on. Blood red, bold, reckless. It terrified her, and that was the point. Later, as she tucked her children into bed, her son reached for her hand. "Mom, are you okay? You look different." She kissed his forehead. "I'm fine, sweetheart," but in truth she wasn't fine. She was awakening. Monica called again that evening. "Clara, please tell me you're not doing this." Clara stood before the mirror, holding the invitation one last time. "He thinks I'm broken. He thinks I'll hide while he wins. But Monica, I've hidden long enough." Her sister's sigh crackled through the phone. "And what if he tries to humiliate you again?" Clara's reflection stared back at her, eyes sharper than she remembered. "Then let him try. This time I'm not walking in as his wife. I'm walking in as me." The night of the gala loomed like a storm on the horizon. Clara placed the invitation in her clutch alongside a lipstick she hadn't worn in years. What Adrian had sent as a joke now burned in her hands as something else. A challenge. A spark. And Clara, once silenced, once discarded, felt something rise within her that Adrian had never anticipated. Resolve. The red dress was waiting, and so was she. The bell above the boutique door gave a delicate chime as Clara stepped inside. The air smelled of roses and champagne, too refined, too foreign for someone who hadn't bought anything new in years. Mannequins lined the floor like soldiers, clothed in silks that clung like secrets, gowns that shimmered under chandeliers. Monica followed behind her, crossing her arms tightly. "This is madness. You don't need to do this," Clara didn't answer. Her eyes moved across racks of fabric, each dress whispering possibilities she'd long denied herself. She touched a sleeve of velvet, a hem of satin. Her fingers lingered as though she could absorb strength through touch. The saleswoman, a sleek figure with hair in a perfect chignon, approached with a practiced smile. "Good evening. Shopping for a special occasion?" Clara's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "A gala. I need something unforgettable." The woman's eyes flickered between Clara's plain sweater and Monica's scowl. There was a faint twitch of doubt before her smile returned. "Follow me. I know just the collection." In the dressing room, Clara stood before a full-length mirror, trying gown after gown. Emerald green, midnight blue, gold, each one beautiful, each one wrong. She felt like a guest wearing another woman's skin. Monica sat in the corner, frowning deeper with every discarded hanger. "He doesn't deserve this." "You parading into his circus just to give him the satisfaction of seeing you struggle?" "He'll twist it, Clara. He always does." Clara met her sister's gaze through the mirror. "This isn't for him. It's for me." Monica shook her head. "He crushed you once. You think a dress will change that?" Clara slid the hanger onto the rack and whispered, "Maybe it's not about changing him. Maybe it's about changing me." The saleswoman returned carrying something different, a sheath of fabric that seemed to bleed in the light. Red, deep, dangerous, defiant. "This one," she said softly, almost conspiratorial. "It takes courage to wear, but it leaves an impression no one forgets." Clara hesitated. The color scared her. Red was loud, unapologetic. For years she had survived by being invisible, shrinking herself into corners where judgment couldn't reach. "Try it," Monica urged with sarcasm. "Why not? At least then we can leave." Inside the fitting room, Clara unzipped the garment bag and let the gown spill over her hands. The silk was cool, almost liquid. As she stepped into it, she felt her pulse quicken. When she pulled it over her shoulders and fastened the back, she turned toward the mirror and stopped breathing. The woman staring back wasn't the Clara who sat in courtrooms with tear-stained cheeks. Not the Clara who begged for Adrian's support as contractions tore through her body. Not the Clara who walked home alone after signing divorce papers that reduced her to scraps. This Clara was fierce. Her skin glowed against the crimson fabric, her shoulders straighter, her eyes sharper. The dress clung to her body not like a cage but like armor. Memories surfaced uninvited. Adrian in their old kitchen, leaning against marble counters with a smirk as he admitted he was done playing house. His mistress's laughter drifting through their home while Clara sat in silence, belly swollen with his child. The courtroom replayed itself too. Adrian's expensive lawyers spitting accusations, his false concern dripping like poison. She remembered gripping Monica's hand under the table, her dignity stripped as he painted her as weak, unfit, pathetic. The red in the mirror swallowed those memories whole. Monica's voice broke the silence. "Well, let me see." Clara stepped out, her sister's eyes widened. Oh my God." Clara spun slowly, the silk-catching light pooling at her feet like fire. For a heartbeat she felt terrified. And then Monica stood, covering her mouth. "Clara, you look like someone he can't touch." Clara's lips trembled into the smallest of smiles. "That's the point." The saleswoman clasped her hands together, satisfied. "It's as though it was made for you. Red is the color of power, of reclamation. Few dare to wear it, but when they do, the world has no choice but to look." Clara swallowed hard. "I'll take it," Monica groaned. "Do you even know the price?" Clara didn't. She didn't care. For once, this wasn't about what she could afford. It was about what she couldn't afford not to do. Back at the apartment, Clara hung the gown on her closet door. The color lit the dim room like a flare. She sat on the bed staring at it as the weight of her decision sank in. Her daughter padded in, hair messy from sleep. "Mommy? Why's there a princess dress in your room?" Clara pulled her close, pressing a kiss into her hair. "Because sometimes, even moms need to feel like they can be more than what people think." The little girl giggled. "You'll be the prettiest one there." Clara smiled, though tears stung her eyes. If only her daughter knew this wasn't about pretty. This was about survival, about taking back everything Adrian thought he'd stolen forever. Later, Monica returned with wine and 2 glasses. She poured without asking, handing Clara a glass as they sat together, the dress glowing between them. "You're really doing this?" Monica murmured. Clara swirled the wine. "He wanted me to be the joke. He wanted me to stay small. But I won't." Her sister studied her. "And if he laughs in your face?" Clara's voice hardened. "Then let him. But I won't be laughing stock. I'll be the storm he never saw coming." They drank in silence, the red dress watching over them like a promise. That night, Clara stood before the mirror one last time. She touched the fabric, traced the neckline, felt the weight of it against her skin. For years, Adrian had dictated her story. Tonight, the dress rewrote it. The woman in the glass didn't look broken anymore. She looked like fire. And fire, Clara realized, doesn't ask permission to burn. The valet line glittered with black cars polished like obsidian. Men in tuxedos and women in gowns stepped out into the marble courtyard, their laughter clinking louder than the champagne glasses waiting inside. Clara's cab pulled to the curb, plain, unremarkable. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror, uncertain if his passenger truly belonged here. Clara smoothed her palms over the red silk and whispered, "Yes, tonight I belong." The door opened, and the night shifted. Inside, the Hale Foundation Gala pulsed with wealth. Crystal chandeliers spilled light across gold-leaf ceilings, the scent of orchids heavy in the air. A string quartet hummed beneath the chatter of the city's elite. At the center of it all stood Adrian Hale. He was laughing, teeth flashing under the ballroom glow, his hand firmly on the waist of his fiancée, Lila, young, blonde, sculpted for the spotlight. His laughter carried the arrogance of a man who believed the world bent for him. "Adrian Hale," someone whispered. "Untouchable." But then the doors opened again and Clara walked in. The room stopped breathing, the red dress clung to her like liquid fire, trailing across polished marble. Her hair, once hidden in simple buns, cascaded in waves. Her eyes, sharp, unflinching, met the crowd as though daring them to speak. Whispers rippled like sparks through dry grass. "Is that—" "It's her, Clara Hale." She actually came. Cameras flashed, subtle but hungry. Even the photographers stationed for society pages tilted, lenses locking onto the unexpected centerpiece. Across the room, Adrian's laughter cracked. His hand slipped from Lila's waist. His smirk faltered. Lila noticed instantly. She leaned closer, voice low and poisoned. "Who is she?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "No one." Lila's eyes narrowed as the no one became the only person anyone could see. Clara kept walking. Every step echoed with the memory of nights she walked alone with groceries balanced on her hip and an infant in her arms. Every step told the story of a woman who had been humiliated in court, abandoned in love and left to rebuild from. Now the ash burned bright red. She reached the edge of the ballroom where Monica, invited, only because Clara insisted, waited with a glass of wine she hadn't touched. "You actually did it," Monica whispered, eyes wide. Clara smirked faintly. "He wanted me to be a joke. Let's see how funny it feels now." Adrian forced himself forward, slipping through his circle of donors, his smile returning like armor. "Clara," he said, voice smooth as glass, though his eyes darted. "What a surprise," her gaze didn't flinch. "You sent me an invitation," a faint laugh. "I didn't think you'd take it seriously." She tilted her head, her tone calm, cutting. "You should know better than anyone, Adrian. I take everything seriously." Gasps around them. Guests pretended to sip champagne, but every ear leaned closer. Lila slid beside Adrian, pressing herself against his side. "You must be the ex-wife," she said with saccharine venom. "How brave of you to come." Clara's lips curved, but her eyes stayed locked on Adrian. "Brave? No, necessary." Adrian's smile flickered. His empire thrived on control. on predicting outcomes, silencing voices, manipulating narratives. But Clara's presence was unpredictable. A ghost resurrected in red silk, haunting the life he thought he buried. Monica touched Clara's elbow, whispering, "You've got them rattled. Now breathe. Don't let them see you sweat." Clara inhaled slowly, letting her shoulders drop. She scanned the room. The judges Adrian had charmed, the politicians he had bought, the clients who feared him. Tonight, every one of them was watching, wondering who this woman was who dared to pierce his perfection. The power shifted in real time, subtle but undeniable. Later, as dinner was announced, Adrian made a calculated move. He rose to the podium, tapping his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. The Hale Foundation stands for legacy, honor, and resilience." His gaze flicked toward Clara. "Qualities we all admire, even in the face of adversity." The crowd chuckled politely. Adrian smirked, reassured. Clara's nails dug into her palm under the tablecloth. Monica leaned close. "He's trying to spin it. To make you the cautionary tale." Clara lifted her glass. "Then it's time I remind him I'm not the one on trial." During dessert, a banker leaned toward Clara. "I must say, Mrs. Hale, you're causing quite the stir tonight." Clara smiled politely. "I'm not Mrs. Hale anymore." The words sliced clean. The banker blinked, unsettled, before nodding. Across the table, whispers resumed. Clara felt them circling, feeding, and for once she welcomed it. Adrian approached again, tension wrapped tight around his grin. "Clara, let's talk privately." She met his gaze. "Afraid of what I'll say in public?" His jaw twitched. "This isn't the place. Then why invite me?" She asked, voice loud enough for the nearby table to hear. "Why drag me back into your circus?" Eyes turned, forks froze midair. Adrian stepped closer, lowering his tone. "You're embarrassing yourself." Clara leaned in, her voice like steel. "No, Adrian. For once you're the one embarrassed," Lila hissed, tugging at Adrian's sleeve. "She's ruining everything." Adrian snapped under his breath, "She's nothing." But his eyes betrayed him. For the first time, Clara saw fear ripple beneath his practiced mask. The music swelled again, couples moving to the dance floor. But the night no longer belonged to Adrian, or his carefully crafted empire. It belonged to the woman in red, the ex-wife who should have stayed broken but instead walked in burning. Monica clinked her glass against Clara's. "You've stolen his spotlight." Clara's lips curved into a smile, faint but certain. "Good. He stole enough from me." As midnight neared, Clara excused herself, gliding toward the exit. She didn't need to stay. She'd already won. Cameras flashed one last time, sealing the image of her departure. Red silk against marble, power against arrogance. Behind her, Adrian's laughter was gone. The room buzzed with a new story, one he could not control. And for the first time, Clara walked into the night not as his discarded wife, but as the woman who shattered his facade with nothing more than her presence. The ballroom air thickened the moment Clara returned from the powder room. Conversation stilled in pockets as she crossed the floor, her red dress trailing like fire. She could feel eyes on her, curiosity, malice, envy. A predator entering the wrong cage. At first, she thought the path back to her table was clear. But then Adrian's circle tightened around her. Men in tuxedos she recognized from courtrooms, women dripping in diamonds who once sent her pitying glances. And at the center of them, Lila, Adrian's fiancée, smile sharp as glass. "Well, if it isn't the ghost of parties past," Lila purred. Clara stopped, shoulders squared. "Excuse me." "Oh, don't rush off," Lila continued, voice loud enough to carry. "We were just admiring your bravery to come here, dressed like that." Snickers followed. The words sank claws under Clara's skin, but she kept her chin lifted. Monica's voice slipped into her ear, low and urgent. "Keep walking. Don't feed them," but Clara's body froze. Lila stepped closer, perfume heavy, lips curled. "It must be strange seeing Adrian so happy. Without you." Clara's mouth went dry. She tried to breathe past the tension in her chest, but Lila's tone clawed at her like every headline, every courtroom humiliation. One of the men leaned in, whispering, "Remember the papers?" Called her the charity case, laughter. Quiet, poisonous. Clara closed her eyes for half a heartbeat, and suddenly she was no longer in the ballroom. She was back in a hospital bed, fluorescent lights burning her eyes. Sweat slicked her skin as contractions ripped through her. "Where is he?" the nurse asked gently. He's coming, Clara whispered, though she knew he wasn't. Hours later, she held her newborn alone, no hand to hold, no voice to soothe. Just the distant echo of Adrian's words days earlier. I can't do this. Don't call me. The ache seared again, raw as ever. Clara? Monica's voice snapped her back. Lila's smirk widened. Still with us? Or lost in another one of your tragic daydreams? Clara steadied her breath. I came here because he invited me. That's all. Oh, darling, Lila said, eyes gleaming. He only did it out of pity. A joke, really. You walked right into it. Clara felt the sting of humiliation creep up her throat. But then she remembered another courtroom, her hands shaking as Adrian's attorney brandished forged bank statements calling her financially reckless. She's unfit, the lawyer had argued. She cannot be trusted with his assets nor the children's stability. And Adrian, her husband, her supposed partner, just sat there smirking. Clara's fists tightened now. The past was not a scar that had healed, it was a wound Adrian kept slicing open. She met Lila's gaze. Funny thing about jokes, Clara said softly. Sometimes the one laughing doesn't realize the laugh is on them. A hush spread. Lila's eyes flashed, her mask slipping. Careful, she snapped. Adrian appeared then, sensing the shift. What's going on here? Lila looped her arm through his, tightening her grip as though to mark territory. Nothing, darling. Your ex-wife was just reminiscing. Adrian's eyes flicked to Clara. Cold, calculated. You've made your appearance, Clara. Don't push your luck. Monica slid between them. Protective. We're done here. But Clara didn't move, not yet. She studied Adrian, the same man who once whispered promises into her hair, who swore she'd never face pain alone. That man had turned into this, a polished monster clutching a younger woman like a trophy. And yet, he looked uneasy. The corners of his mouth strained, his shoulders taut. Clara realized the red dress had done more than steal attention. It had unsettled him. Monica tugged at her hand. Clara, enough. Finally, Clara let herself be led away. In the corner of the ballroom, away from the gleam of chandeliers, Clara braced herself against the wall. Her reflection stared back from a gilt mirror, eyes glistening, lips trembling, armor cracking. Monica stood close, voice low. You don't have to keep proving yourself. You survived him. Isn't that enough? Clara shook her head. No, surviving isn't enough. He humiliated me in front of everyone, again and again. He left me begging for scraps of dignity. Tonight, I realized I don't just want to survive him. I want to end him. Monica's eyes widened. Clara, I'm not talking about violence, Clara said quickly. I'm talking about truth. About justice. He thinks I'm still that woman in the courtroom crying while he smirks. But I'm not. Not anymore. Music swelled again, the orchestra drowning out whispers. Clara's eyes wandered across the room. Over Adrian's polished mask, over Lila's smug posture, over the circle of allies who believed she was nothing. But she remembered the nurse's pitying eyes. The judge's gavel slamming as custody terms favored him. The silence of nights she cried into pillows while her children slept. Every humiliation resurfaced, not as weakness, but as fuel. Clara lifted her chin. He thought inviting me was a joke, but he just reminded me why I have to fight. Monica exhaled, defeated but proud. Then fight smart. Don't let the scars blind you. Clara's lips curved. Old wounds don't blind me, Monica. They remind me where to strike. The gala carried on, glittering and oblivious. But for Clara, the night had shifted. She no longer felt like an intruder in Adrian's world. She felt like the storm building just outside its gilded walls. The orchestra swelled. The dance floor spun with silk and tuxedos. But Clara lingered at the edges of the ballroom, her wine untouched. Monica stayed close, her voice clipped. You did what you came to do, Monica whispered. You shook him. Now let's go before he finds another way to twist the knife. Clara's gaze fixed on Adrian across the room, laughing too loud, his hand clamped on Lila's arm as if anchoring himself. Not yet, Monica sighed. Clara! But Clara was already moving. She slipped down a side corridor lined with gilded mirrors and velvet drapes. Away from the laughter, the gala's hum dulled into echoes. She needed air, needed quiet, needed to feel something other than the suffocating burn of humiliation that Lila's words had reopened. That's when she heard it. Two men's voices, low but urgent, bleeding from the alcove near the staff entrance. He doctored the signatures. No one's caught it yet. Clara froze, heart lurching. The second man scoffed. That's why he's untouchable. He made sure the divorce records and the financial disclosures lined up, on paper anyway. Her throat tightened. Divorce records. She leaned closer, pressing against the wall, her pulse pounding in her ears. The first man spoke again. The offshore accounts are worse. Shell companies' transfers routed through the foundation. It's laundering, plain and simple. Clara's breath caught. She knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't move. Every syllable sank into her chest like glass. The second man chuckled nervously. And his ex-wife never suspected? Of course not, the first replied. He buried her in false reports. By the time the court saw them, it was airtight. She walked away with nothing, and he walked away clean. Clara's body went cold. Her hand shook around her clutch. False reports, signatures, buried her, her divorce. Her ruin, it wasn't just cruelty. It was crime. Memories crashed back. Adrian's lawyers sliding documents across the table, the judge frowning down at her as if she were incompetent. She remembered insisting, but these aren't my records, and being silenced by Adrian's patronizing smile. And now, proof. Proof she hadn't imagined it. Proof he had stolen more than her pride. Clara? Monica's whisper jolted her. She turned wide-eyed. Monica grabbed her arm, pulling her farther down the corridor. What are you doing hiding in corners? Monica demanded. Clara's voice trembled. I heard them. 2 of Adrian's people. They were talking about signatures. Offshore accounts. They said he doctored the divorce papers. Monica blinked. Are you sure? Clara's voice broke. I'm sure. He didn't just ruin me, he rigged everything. He laundered money, Monica. He made me look like a fool while he broke the law. Monica steadied her, gripping her shoulders. Okay, breathe. If this is true, you can't rush into it. He's dangerous. He'll bury you again. Clara shook her head. Not this time. If I can find proof, if I can show the world what he did, he'll finally be the one on trial. Monica's jaw tightened. Clara, this isn't just personal anymore. You're talking about exposing crimes. People like him don't go down without dragging others with them. Clara's lips pressed into a thin line. Then I'll drag him first. She wiped her eyes, straightening. For the first time all night, the humiliation in her chest had shifted into something else. Clarity. She replayed the whispered words, locking them into memory. Offshore accounts, doctored signatures, laundering. It wasn't just her story anymore. It was his empire. They re-entered the ballroom cautiously. The crowd was back in motion, unaware of the truth simmering in the shadows. Clara scanned the room, watching Adrian laugh, toast, and bask in attention as though he hadn't hollowed lives to build his throne. Her chest no longer clenched with shame. It clenched with fury. Monica leaned close. What's the plan? Clara's eyes hardened. First, I find out who those men were. Then I follow the trail, Monica exhaled. And after that? Clara didn't blink. I take back everything he stole, and I make sure he pays. As the gala wound down, Adrian caught her eye across the floor. His smirk returned, brittle but present. He thought he'd survived the night. Clara held his gaze, her own expression unreadable. If only he knew. Tonight he had handed her the one thing she had been missing all these years. Leverage. And Clara intended to use it. The night after the gala, Clara sat at her kitchen table, the invitation still on the counter, its edges curled from the heat of her hands. The children slept in their rooms. The silence of the apartment was thick, but her mind pulsed with the words she'd overheard. Doctored signatures, offshore accounts. She walked away with nothing. He walked away clean. Monica sat across from her, eyes sharp, arms folded. Say it out loud, Clara. What is it you think you've found? Clara swallowed hard. Proof, or at least the promise of proof. He faked the records. He laundered money through the foundation. And if I can prove that, Monica cut her off. Then you're not just fighting Adrian. You're poking a wolf that's been running the whole forest. Clara leaned forward, eyes blazing. I'm not afraid of him anymore. But her hands shook against the glass of water she hadn't touched. 2 days later, Clara sat across from Samuel Reeve, a journalist whose career was built on dismantling powerful men. The cafe was nearly empty, the bitter smell of espresso clinging to the air. Samuel adjusted his glasses, scanning the notes she'd scribbled. You overheard this at the gala? Yes. Clara's voice was steady, though her pulse roared. They mentioned doctored divorce records, shell accounts, laundered money through the foundation. He leaned back, expression unreadable. Big accusations. Do you have anything tangible? Clara faltered. Not yet, but I know the patterns. The way his lawyers dismissed my objections, how the documents didn't match my records. It never made sense until now. Samuel steepled his fingers. If you're right, Adrian Hale isn't just a cruel ex-husband. He's a criminal, and criminals leave trails. But I can't build a story on overheard whispers. We'll need hard evidence. Clara's voice hardened. Then we'll find it. That evening, Monica confronted her. A journalist? Clara, do you hear yourself? You want to drag your kids yourself into a war with Adrian's money and lawyers? Clara's eyes burned. He already dragged me through hell. What's left to fear? Monica softened, sitting beside her. Losing yourself again. I watched you break once. I can't watch it happen twice. Clara touched her sister's hand. This time I'm not breaking. This time I'm building a case. Weeks blurred into late nights and endless files. Clara met Samuel in quiet corners of libraries, old cafes where the Wi-Fi was spotty but privacy was plentiful. He pulled strings, accessed archives, called sources, and then luck struck. At a dimly lit bar, Samuel introduced her to someone unexpected. This is Daniel Cross, Samuel said, junior partner at Hale & Wexler. Clara stiffened. Adrian's firm? Daniel's smile was grim. Not for long. I've seen too much and I'm done keeping his secrets. Daniel spread files across the table, his hands shaking. He uses the foundation as a laundering pipeline. Donations from shell corporations get rerouted through offshore accounts. It looks charitable on the surface, but it's theft. Clara's stomach knotted as her eyes scanned the documents. Numbers swam, transfers, deposits, dates. Daniel pointed to one page. Here, these are your divorce records. That signature? Not yours. I'd bet my career it was forged. Clara's breath caught. Her hand traced the scrawl of her own name, but off, slanted, mechanical, a caricature of her handwriting. Her voice trembled. He took everything. And he lied to the court to make it happen. Daniel's jaw tightened. He's ruthless, but arrogance leaves fingerprints. And I've been keeping copies. The floodgates opened. Daniel smuggled files, transaction trails, falsified affidavits, memos where Adrian mocked clients he'd gutted for profit. Each discovery was a shard of glass, cutting Clara with the reality of how far Adrian's corruption reached. Flashbacks clawed at her as she read. Clara in the courtroom, tears streaking her cheeks. The judge frowning as Adrian's lawyer slammed documents on the table. Her insisting, that isn't my signature. Only to be silenced with a glare. Adrian's smug voice in the hallway afterward. The law isn't about truth, Clara. It's about power. Her fists clenched until her nails dug crescents into her skin. One night, after hours of reviewing evidence, Clara slammed a file shut. He didn't just destroy me. He's been destroying people for years. Samuel nodded slowly. This is bigger than a divorce. We're talking fraud, laundering, conspiracy. With this much smoke, there's fire. But if we go public too soon, he'll bury us. Monica, who had been silent all evening, finally spoke. So what's the plan? You sit on this mountain of evidence and hope he slips? Clara shook her head. No, I build it piece by piece, until he has nowhere left to run. Daniel leaned in, his voice low. But understand this, if you do this, Clara, there's no going back. He'll come for you, for your kids, for anyone tied to you. Clara met his gaze. For the first time in years, her voice didn't shake. Then let him. He's always underestimated me. That's his mistake. Back home, Clara tucked her children into bed. Her daughter clutched a stuffed rabbit, whispering, Mommy, are you okay? Clara kissed her forehead. I'm better than okay. I'm fighting for us. When the lights went out, Clara stood at the doorway, the red dress glowing faintly from the closet in the moonlight. Once armor, now a banner, she whispered into the dark. Adrian thought he ended me, but I'm not finished. Not by a long shot. By the time Clara collapsed into bed, exhaustion heavy, Monica lingered at the doorway. You're really going to war with him? Monica murmured. Clara's eyes opened, sharp even through fatigue. No, I'm not at war with him. I'm putting him on trial. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock. Clara had tried to keep things normal after the long weeks of digging through files and whispered meetings with Samuel and Daniel. Dinner on the table. Homework spread out on the counter. Laughter where she could force it. But children notice what mothers think they hide. Her son Lucas sat across from her, untouched math problems smudged with pencil marks. His eyes, usually full of restless energy, were fixed on her with a gravity far beyond his years. Beside him, his little sister Lily clutched a crayon, coloring absently as if the page were only an excuse to linger near the adult's silence. "Mom," Lucas said finally, his voice low. "Why doesn't Dad ever call?" Clara froze, spoon halfway to her mouth. The question she'd dodged for years had landed like a blade. Monica, who had been folding laundry on the couch, looked up sharply. "Lucas, no," Clara cut in softly, setting the spoon down. "He deserves the truth," her chest tightened. For years, she'd built a wall of half-truths to protect them. Daddy's busy. Daddy lives far away. Daddy loves you in his own way. Each lie felt like a bandage, but bandages rot if they're never removed. Lucas leaned forward, fists clenched. "You don't have to protect me anymore, Mom." Clara's breath hitched. The words pulled her back to the hospital room, to the sterile smell and fluorescent lights. She had been alone, clutching Lucas as a newborn, whispering promises that she would shield him from the world's cruelty. She remembered rocking him to sleep, murmuring, "I'll keep you safe, no matter what it cost me." And now her son sat tall, eyes brimming with determination she recognized because it was her own. She pushed her chair back, kneeling beside him so her eyes were level with his. Lily looked up from her crayons, sensing the shift. "Your father," Clara's voice trembled. "He chose to leave. Not because of you. Never because of you. He left because he didn't want the responsibility of being a husband or a father. He thought his life would be easier without us." Lily frowned, small voice breaking. "But why? Didn't he love us?" Clara's heart cracked. She cupped her daughter's cheek. "Love is more than words, baby. Love is showing up." And he didn't. Tears gathered in Lily's eyes. Lucas reached over, pulling her close. "It's okay," he said, steady, protective. "We have Mom. We don't need him." Clara's chest swelled with both pain and pride. Her children had been the reason she survived sleepless nights, the reason she swallowed her humiliation when Adrian mocked her in court. And here was her son becoming the strength she once promised to be for him. She whispered, voice raw, "I didn't want you to grow up with scars from his choices. I thought hiding the truth would keep you safe." Lucas shook his head. "Hiding it just made it worse. I could tell. Every time you looked sad after the mail came. Every time you pretended we had enough when we didn't. He hurt you, Mom. He hurt us too, even when he wasn't here." Clara's lips trembled. "You're right. He did." Monica moved closer, her voice careful. "Clara, are you sure about this?" Clara nodded, her eyes never leaving her children. "They deserve the truth. I can't fight him in secret anymore." Lucas's eyes lit with something fierce. "Then fight him. Not just for you, for us." The words cut straight through Clara. She saw her son, not as the boy she had once cradled in a rocking chair, but as the boy now handing her permission to stop hiding. Her tears finally spilled. "I will, Lucas, I promise. I'm going to fight for us. Not just for revenge, but so you'll never have to feel small because of him again." Later that night, when the children were asleep, Monica joined Clara on the balcony, the city lights blinking like distant stars. "You did the right thing," Monica said softly. Clara exhaled, shaky but certain. "For years I thought motherhood meant protecting them from the truth. But maybe it means arming them with it." Monica tilted her head. "And now?" Clara's gaze hardened toward the skyline. "Now I'm not just fighting as his ex-wife. I'm fighting as their mother, and there's nothing more dangerous than that." Inside, Lucas stirred in his sleep, clutching his sister close. And in the quiet, Clara felt the weight of her scars shifting into something else. Resolve sharpened by love. Adrian had thought he was untouchable, but he had never faced a mother with nothing left to lose. The courthouse smelled of dust and coffee, its marble halls echoing with the shuffle of shoes and hushed murmurs. For years, Clara had dreaded these walls. They reminded her of gavel strikes that stole her dignity, of smirking lawyers who twisted her pain into performance. But this morning, the weight in her chest felt different. Not dread, purpose. She tightened her grip on the handle of her briefcase. Inside were files Samuel and Daniel had unearthed, ledgers, falsified records, damning evidence of Adrian's schemes. Her armor wasn't silk this time. It was truth. Monica walked beside her, whispering like a general at war. You don't owe him fear anymore. Remember that. Clara nodded, but her stomach still knotted when the courtroom doors swung open. Adrian was already there. He stood tall in a navy suit, flanked by 3 lawyers whose ties alone looked more expensive than Clara's rent. Cameras snapped as he flashed his trademark smirk, a portrait of control. Clara Hale, he drawled as she passed. Didn't expect to see you on this side of the aisle. You'll find it much less forgiving. Clara met his eyes. For once, they didn't pierce her. They fueled her. Forgiveness isn't what I came for. His smile faltered just slightly. The proceedings began. Reporters lined the benches, pens scratching. The judge, stern and gray, announced the case. The state versus Adrian Hale. Clara sat at the plaintiff's table, Samuel beside her as counsel of record, Monica just behind like a shadow ready to catch her if she stumbled. Adrian lounged across from them, whispering to his attorneys, radiating arrogance. But beneath the smirk, Clara saw tension in his jaw. The first witness was called Daniel Cross. Daniel's testimony cracked the silence. I worked at Hale and Wexler for 7 years. I saw firsthand how Mr. Hale falsified client documents, rerouted donations, and forged signatures, including Mrs. Hale's, during the divorce proceedings. Gasps rippled through the room. Adrian's attorney leapt up. Objection. These claims are unsubstantiated, but Samuel was ready. He slid a stack of files across the bench. Exhibit A copies Daniel Cross smuggled before resigning. Originals sealed under attorney-client privilege, now released under whistleblower protection. The judge leaned forward, scanning the pages. Objection overruled. Clara's pulse raced. For the first time, Adrian's mask slipped. During cross-examination, Adrian's attorney sneered, Mr. Cross, you expect us to believe you risked your career out of sudden conscience? Daniel's voice was steady. I risked it because I couldn't watch one more client lose everything while Adrian Hale lined his pockets. And because I watched his ex-wife walk away with nothing after a forged signature stripped her clean. He glanced toward Clara, and the courtroom followed his gaze. The spotlight, once a weapon used against her, now cast Adrian in shadow. Adrian shifted in his seat. Clara recognized the twitch in his hand, the vein rising in his temple. He hated being cornered. Monica leaned in, whispering, He's cracking. Can you see it? Clara whispered back, Not enough. Not yet. The next witness, a forensic handwriting analyst. These signatures, she explained, pointing to projected documents, appear on Mrs. Hale's divorce disclosures. When compared to authenticated samples of her handwriting, there are inconsistencies, pressure points, angles, letter formations. In my expert opinion, they are forgeries. The words forgeries echoed like a hammer. Clara felt her throat tighten, remembering the day those documents condemned her. How she'd screamed through tears, That's not mine, only to be dismissed. Now, the truth rang out in a courtroom that could no longer silence her. Adrian's lawyer stood. Isn't it possible she simply signed in haste? Under stress? The analyst shook her head. Stress doesn't change baseline handwriting. Fraud does. The jury scribbled notes. Break was called. In the hallway, Clara leaned against the wall, her breath unsteady. Monica pressed a bottle of water into her hand. You're winning, Monica said. Do you realize that? Clara shook her head. Not yet. He always finds a way to twist things. Monica touched her arm. Not this time. You're not alone. Back inside, Adrian himself was called to the stand. He walked with swagger, but his eyes flickered with unease. Mr. Hale, Samuel began, did you or did you not authorize the transfer of $1.2 million from the Hale Foundation to Meridian Consulting, an offshore shell company? Adrian smirked. As chairman, I authorize hundreds of transfers. I don't micromanage every decimal. Samuel slid forward a document. This transfer bore your personal signature. The same signature now verified as inconsistent with Mrs. Hale's. The room buzzed. Adrian's smirk hardened. I don't recall. Convenient, Samuel said coolly. During cross, Adrian snapped. My ex-wife is bitter. This is a witch hunt. She'll say anything to drag me down. Clara felt heat rise, but she held her tongue. The jury's eyes were fixed on him now, not her. They saw the cracks widening. Monica leaned forward, whispering with quiet awe. He's showing them who he really is. The trial stretched late into the afternoon. Exhibits stacked high, testimonies painting Adrian not as the untouchable mogul he pretended to be, but as a predator cloaked in respectability. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras captured every flinch, every twitch, and in headline drafts already forming, Clara knew one image would dominate: the red dress from the gala. The woman who walked into his empire and shattered it with her defiance. As the session adjourned, Adrian's eyes locked with hers. No smirk now. Just fury barely caged, he mouthed a single word. War. Clara stood taller. Then war it is. She turned toward Monica, her voice quiet but steady. For years he made the courtroom his weapon. Now it's mine. Monica's lips curved with fierce pride. And you're winning. That night, as Clara tucked her children into bed, Lucas whispered, "Did he hear you today, Mom?" Clara kissed his forehead. "Oh, he heard me. And tomorrow, the world will too." The courtroom was colder that morning, or maybe it was Adrian who made it feel that way. He sat rigid in the witness box, jaw tight, eyes darting. His lawyers flanked him, whispering frantic instructions, but even their polished confidence seemed to fray at the edges. Clara adjusted her seat at the plaintiff's table. Her palms were steady now, something she hadn't thought possible in this place. The same courtroom where Adrian once towered over her was now the stage of his undoing. Monica leaned forward from behind, whispering into her ear, "Stay calm. Let him hang himself." Clara gave the faintest nod, her eyes never leaving Adrian. Samuel rose, voice calm but razor sharp. "Mr. Hale, let's return to the offshore transfers. Were you aware these funds, donations meant for your foundation's charitable work, were redirected into personal accounts?" Adrian forced a smile. "As I said before, I don't manage every decimal." Samuel lifted a document. "Yet here is an email with your direct approval. Your initials, your instruction." Adrian's lips pressed thin. "Taken out of context." Samuel's voice didn't rise. "And the forged signatures? Your ex-wife's, specifically." Adrian's gaze snapped toward Clara, venom in his eyes. "She's making this up." She always had a flair for melodrama. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge's gavel cracked. "Mr. Hale, address the court, not your ex-wife." Adrian's composure wavered. His smirk twitched into something brittle. Samuel pressed further. "So your testimony is that every document, every expert witness, every piece of evidence presented here today is fabricated?" Adrian barked a laugh, louder than intended. "Of course it is." "You're all buying into her sob story. She's been weak her whole life, clinging to me for relevance. Without me, she's nothing." The room stilled. Jurors stiffened, eyes narrowing. Clara sat taller, every muscle disciplined into stillness. Inside, old wounds throbbed. The nights he said those words in their kitchen, when she was pregnant and pleading for kindness. But she refused to flinch now. Monica's whisper cut like steel behind her. "Don't give him your fear. Give him your silence." So Clara held his gaze, calm, unshaken, while Adrian flailed. Samuel stepped closer to the stand. "Mr. Hale, do you realize you just admitted, under oath, that you see your ex-wife as powerless, someone you could manipulate? Isn't that exactly the behavior these forged documents suggest?" Adrian slammed his hand on the railing. "Don't twist my words." She begged for everything she got. She was pathetic. Always whining, never grateful. The jury flinched. Reporters scribbled furiously. Adrian's lawyers hissed at him to stop, but he shoved them off. His face reddened, his charm burned away. "You think she's some saint?" he snarled, voice cracking. "She's a parasite. I gave her everything, my name, my money, my time." "And what did she do?" "Complain, nag, cry, always crying." Clara felt tears threaten, but she swallowed them back. "Not here. Not now." Instead, she breathed slowly, letting silence become her weapon. The judge's gavel struck again. "Mr. Hale, you will control yourself." But Adrian wasn't listening. Years of carefully polished image collapsed into raw rage, spilling into the open. Samuel didn't interrupt. He let the unraveling play out. "You all think she's some poor little victim," Adrian ranted, voice echoing off the walls. "But she's nothing without me. She'll always be nothing without me." The courtroom buzzed, horrified. Jurors exchanged looks, anger, disgust. Clara sat motionless, the eye of his storm, and that stillness cut deeper than any outburst. Finally, Samuel turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, I believe the witness has demonstrated precisely the abusive tendencies we've been discussing. No further questions. Adrian's lawyers scrambled to regain control, demanding recess, trying to patch the wreckage. But the damage was done. The jury had seen behind the mask. When the court adjourned for lunch, Clara stepped into the hallway, her breath shaky. Monica grabbed her shoulders, eyes wide with pride. Did you see yourself in there? You didn't break. He did. Clara exhaled, tears finally slipping free. For years, I thought if I just stayed quiet, he'd win. But silence wasn't weakness today. It was strength. Monica smiled softly. And now everyone else sees the man we always knew. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Mrs. Hale, how do you feel after his outburst? Clara paused, lifting her chin. I feel free. Flashbulbs exploded. Headlines were already writing themselves. That evening, as she tucked Lucas and Lily into bed, Lucas asked, Did he yell again, Mom? Clara smoothed his hair. Yes, but this time he wasn't yelling at me. He was yelling at himself. Her son smiled faintly. Then you're winning. Clara kissed his forehead, whispering, We are. Adrian had built his empire on masks, wealth, charm, control. But today, under oath, he tore it off with his own hands, and for the first time he was the one cornered, judged, powerless. The courthouse was a fortress of cameras that morning. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones jabbing the air like spears. Headlines were already written in anticipation. Millionaire philanthropist faces judgment. Inside, the air was thicker than any gala Clara had ever walked into. The jury shuffled back into their seats, faces carved in solemn stone. The judge raised his gavel. Silence swept the room like a tide pulling back before a storm. Monica squeezed Clara's hand from behind. Breathe, she whispered. This is the moment he can't steal from you. Clara exhaled, eyes forward. Adrian sat across the aisle, a shadow of his former self. His suit still crisp, but the smirk gone. His hair unruly, his tie crooked. The man who once controlled every glance in the room now looked like a puppet with cut strings. The foreman stood, verdict slip in hand. We, the jury, find the defendant, Adrian Hale, guilty on all counts. The words shattered through the courtroom like glass. Adrian's head jerked as though struck. He started to rise, but his lawyer's hand pressed him back down. Whispers broke into gasps, then silence again as the gavel slammed. Order. Mr. Hale will be remanded pending sentencing. Adrian erupted. This is a sham. A setup. His voice cracked, desperate. She's nothing without me. Nothing. Clara stayed still, spine straight, eyes unyielding. The jury looked at him with disgust, then at her with something else, respect. Monica's whisper floated into her ear. You don't need to say a word. He just buried himself. The bailiff hauled Adrian from the stand. Cameras in the gallery clicked like firecrackers. His voice echoed one last time before the door swallowed him. Clara. You'll regret this. But even his threats rang hollow now. Clara smoothed the hem of her skirt and rose. Her hands didn't tremble. For years, courtrooms had been cages. Today, they were altars. Afterward, she slipped into the bathroom where her garment bag hung waiting. Her hands brushed over the fabric that had started it all, the red dress. Monica arched a brow when Clara emerged. You're serious? You're wearing that? Clara nodded, sliding her arms through the silk. He mocked me with this invitation. I walked into his world in red once, and I'll walk out of this one the same way. Only this time it's not his stage, it's mine. Monica's eyes softened. Then steal the show, sister. The double doors swung open and light flooded the hallway. Cameras whirred. Microphones thrust forward. Clara, how do you feel about the verdict? What message do you have for women like you? Clara stepped forward, holding her children's hands. Lucas on one side, Lily on the other. Their small fingers tightened around hers, grounding her, lifting her. The crowd hushed. For a heartbeat, the world stilled again, just as it had the night of the gala. But this time, the whispers weren't mocking. They were reverent. She paused at the top of the courthouse steps. The red silk shimmered against the gray stone. She bent low, kissed Lily's cheek, whispered something into Lucas's ear. Then she faced the sea of flashing lights. I was invited as a joke, she said clearly, voice carrying over the din. But I'm leaving here as the truth. Not his truth, mine. He tried to erase me. Today, you all saw who he really was and who I've always been. The crowd erupted, questions tumbling, but Clara didn't answer more. Some battles were won in silence. Monica stood at her side, pride shining in her eyes. You did it, Clara. You didn't just win. You rewrote the ending. Clara squeezed her hand. No, we did. She looked at her children. They did. They gave me the strength to stop surviving and start fighting. Lucas tilted his chin, a mirror of his mother's defiance. You don't need to protect us anymore, Mom. We're strong too. Tears filled Clara's eyes, but her smile held steady. You're right. But today reminded me, I don't have to protect you alone. We protect each other. Across the street, a screen replayed footage from the trial spliced with the iconic image of Clara entering the gala in her red dress. Commentators' voices spilled from radios and live streams. Once mocked as the discarded wife, she's now the symbol of resilience. Adrian's empire crumbled in real time, while Clara's story ignited like wildfire. She didn't need wealth. She didn't need revenge dressed as cruelty. Her victory was truth, made visible for the world to see. As they reached the waiting car, a reporter shouted above the chaos, Clara, what do you say to people who think you were just out for revenge? Clara paused, turning back, her children's hands still in hers. Revenge fades. Justice doesn't. And justice is what we claim today. The cameras exploded again. That was the quote they'd run with. She knew it. Inside the car, silence wrapped around them. Lily rested her head on Clara's shoulder. Lucas leaned against her other side. Monica finally allowed herself a smile that reached her eyes. You're free, Monica said. Clara exhaled, the weight of years lifting with each breath. I'm free, but freedom wasn't the absence of scars. It was the strength to carry them with grace. As the car pulled away from the courthouse, Clara looked out the window at the swarm of reporters fading behind them. She saw herself reflected in the glass. Not the broken woman Adrian left in a hospital room. Not the humiliated wife cornered at a gala. She saw fire. She saw a mother. She saw a survivor who had stolen the show without ever needing his permission. And for the first time in years, Clara smiled without pain behind it.